We start with the news that tens of thousands of people have protested across the United States, taking to the streets in protest at the death of the unarmed black man George Floyd in police custody. He died after an officer was filmed kneeling on his neck for at least 8 minutes.
I want to make a change for my people because too long that this has been going on, and it's going to change if we keep talking, obviously, or keep posting something on social media.
I love my community, and these people need someone to stand for them. We all got to stand together. It's starting a revolution right now. We're going to change everything.
Following the murder of George Floyd, protests quickly spread around the world as people expressed their anguish and anger over the death of yet another black person at the hands of the police. Global organisations reacted by publicly showing their support for a universal effort to address and eradicate racism. So too did the world of sport, with stars from Formula One drivers to Premier League players following the lead of America's biggest names in taking the knee as a show of support for the Black Lives Matter movement. But in horse racing, immediate action was not forthcoming.
How many people in racing have put up their hand to say either I'm supporting Black Lives Matter or taken a knee or whatever? There's been no gesture whatsoever from anybody in the sport.
Now, 1 year on from the death of George Floyd, I've come to the historic Jockey Club rooms in Newmarket to meet 3 young men from an ethnically diverse background to find out how the industry's reaction to the events of the past 12 months has affected their view on the sport that they love. Elijah Michael is 20 years old. He's currently training to be a lawyer with the aim of working in the horse racing industry. Kanane Francis is 20 and is an aspiring jockey working in Newmarket. And finally, Callum Helliwell is 24. Callum has worked for Great British Racing and Goffs UK.
As a black person, if I see a man with a knee on his neck who cannot breathe, who's being filmed and killed in front of people, again by a police officer in broad daylight, and racing can just ignore that and continue on and act like nothing has happened, rather than just putting in a single bit of acknowledgement, a black square, for God's sakes, on your social media pages. If you can't do that, then what on earth are you going to do if something else happens? What are you going to do for the smaller elements, the microaggressions? You look at the interview with Rishi Prasad and the negative reaction that came to that, a suggestion that there wasn't any black trainers, which is true. That assertion then led to a visceral, angry response from the general public. If you see that, and that's your first insight into racing, you'd be shocked. You'd be like, not only does the sport not want me here, it doesn't want me full stop. Like, that for me is, that's disgusting. That is taking us so far back.
I remember the day that everything happened with George Floyd. It was early into lockdown and there was nothing on it. I'm not surprised at all by it, to be honest. Now, that's not to say that everyone in horse racing is racist, but it's because, you know, it is a very white sport in these small pockets around the British and Irish countryside. So, as you can imagine, it doesn't affect them. Whereas all these other sports, they're a lot more diverse, and so it does affect them.
So if I say Black Lives Matter, what does that mean to you?
Black Lives Matter to me means Black Lives Matter. I think a lot of people look at it as this kind of political organisation which they can criticise, and you know, it's not to say that black lives are better. It is Black Lives do matter because unfortunately the world hasn't realised that since 400 years ago when slavery started, and we're still catching up, unfortunately.
At certain times, black people did not get as much opportunity as they should get because of the colour of their skin. It doesn't matter what colour you're born, you never know what colour you could be born. So it's just that kind of equality and kind of appreciation that people need to kind of understand. It just needs to be pushed out a bit more, and a lot of other people need to get involved and kind of bring it into a unity.
When I saw the Black Lives Matter movement and I could feel the passion and the rawness of the Black Lives Matter movement, it hit home to me on a level that nothing had ever hit home to me before. When I see organisations such as Formula One, I see organisations like the NFL, the NBA, I see what Sky Sports is doing around Black Lives Matter and continuing to push the message. And now we can say we're pushing the message because the man was murdered in broad daylight, on camera, in front of people. Now, the fact that racing fails to acknowledge that hits me harder than anything can hit me before, because it makes me feel like the sport that I love doesn't care about the person that I am.
Kanane, it was great to see you riding out this morning on Racecourse Side in Newmarket. Tell us your story into racing. Where did it first start? Literally,
it was all by chance. I was scrolling through Facebook and I seen the Urban Equestrian, they posted a post about the kids and stuff, and I thought, oh, why not? He knows my brother. So I took myself down there to see Freedom. I think it was 2 weeks to a month in. He gave me my first time on a horse and stuff, and he was like, yeah, let's go, let's see how you do. Complete havoc. Literally complete havoc. I could not do anything. I couldn't rise. I couldn't control the horse. I about killed the girl that was trying to like long rein me and stuff. But yeah, so he thought, all right, let's not try you in the outdoor school. Let's go to a field, and you can just literally just try like to get a feel for it yourself. So I thought, okay, why not? It might be fun. Got out into the field. I've literally just started annoying the horse. I didn't know what I was doing. I was kicking the horse, trying to like move my hands and stuff. And yeah, the horse just started literally blasting up the field, and I was so happy. I was thinking, I was like screaming at him. I was like, look. And he stopped me and he was like, you know, no one's ever galloped that horse or galloped since they've been here. And you've been here, what, a month, and you're already galloping. It's like you must have a natural kind of talent or natural ability for horses.
I was probably around 5 or 6 when I discovered the morning line, just flicking through the TV channels in the kitchen, and I was hooked. Ever since, I just could not stop watching it. I was fascinated by the idea that all these horses were running all together and all these different coloured people on top, and it was just fantastic. And then a man with a really bushy beard was talking about it all, and there was a group of people whose jobs it was just to talk about it. And before you knew it, at 7 I was trying to find winners at Plumpton when I was at school, so it was like trying to balance working out my times tables. I knew more about the odds than I did about actual times tables, so it's always been racing, it's always been horses.
I was born in Bermuda, and where we used to live, at the bottom of the driveway was a stable, and my dad used to take me every day after school where he finished work with my brother, and that's how it all kicked off. And then we moved to London when I was 5, and I got really into horses. I've always had riding lessons since I was young, but in terms of horse racing, there was no real kind of thing that was grabbing me into horse racing. It was always me going to horse racing.
In terms of diversity and inclusion, have you felt included as you've come into the racing world?
I have sensed a bit of feelings that, okay, yeah, I might be on my own. Not many people have tried to interact with me, or not many people have tried to speak to me on the yards that I've been to before. Even like when I'm riding out, sometimes I get like the dirtiest looks and things like that, and people, you can just see people just like, why are you here? Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't fit in, it's not meant to be here kind of thing. But I just try to keep going with what I want to do, because I just want to push to make these boundaries like open up to a lot of other kids like me, because it would make the industry a lot better and help the industry to bring diversity around and help to push out the word.
So how long are you away from having your first ride? When are we going to see you on a racecourse?
I'm trying to give myself a bit of time this year, get my fitness up, get my riding up to a point where and the standard where I want it to be, and then hopefully start of next year, try to take out my amateur's license, see how it goes on the flat and the jumps, and then make my decision from there.
How do you feel you can get more people of an ethnic minority background involved in the sport?
I think that us two having this conversation and people seeing that, you know, is really important, because it's not that kids from an ethnic minority don't feel they can do it, it's just that they can't see it. You know, to believe it, you must see it. And when we're on this platform doing an interview like this, and it's two people of a black background, I think is really, really powerful for lots of people.
I think social media is a huge sort of hand to this. What racing has done, and you can see it now with more and more of these individual groups appearing. So there are groups for national hunt enthusiasts, there are groups for flat racing fans, there are groups for specific horses. I know there's a Frankel watch group that's very huge now on Facebook. And I think those are great ways of getting people to come across others who are also of a younger generation.
Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, that should be a great platform for racing as well. I think it would be perfect, but you can't get anything on there. The amount of times I've been scrolling through TikTok, trying to do all the hashtags, horse racing this, horse racing that, you can't find anything. And that's down to the fact that horse racing is just not a kind of an institution that is really going out and really engaging with the world around them. And in that sense, it's very separated.
They need to come out into more of society and not kind of be trapped in their little bubble. And it'd be good to bring them to places like Leicester, Birmingham, central London, and just get the kids to come and see, and just, even if they don't like it, just give them an opportunity to maybe sit on the equisizer or something and just feel like, just do a little push on and teach them how to get in the position and certain things like that. Just make them enjoy it and want to try and explore more of the industry.
We need to make it inclusive. We need to bring people in rather than feel like we're forcing it upon racing, because when people feel that something's being forced upon, that's when they'll kick back, and that's when we'll put off yet another generation of people. It needs to be a balanced approach. Every trainer says they're understaffed. Every trainer wants more people. If we are having this staffing crisis, we've got to do more to open up our borders. We've got to open ourselves up to more staff coming in. If that's what the racing industry needs, then we've got to allow ourselves to do that. We can't be asking with one hand and then pushing away with the other. That's not going to be a way to be successful.
I would love to see maybe a black trainer. Just something to show, okay, yeah, we're starting this and we're going to make this happen.
I'm at the prestigious Jockey Club rooms in Newmarket with Elijah Michael, Kanane Francis and Callum Helliwell, discussing how the horse racing industry can better promote and grow diversity and inclusion throughout all aspects of the industry.
Over the past 12 months, diversity and inclusion, since the death of George Floyd, has come more to the fore in the media. How has this affected you as a young black professional?
It's affected me a lot. There was a part of me that thought that racing was ultimately late to the party. It's taken so long to be recognised, and to be honest, it's still not fully recognised it.
And in the last year, Callum, how have you felt about what both racing and other sports have done in light of BLM and diversity and inclusion?
I think racing's been left behind. I think racing has been left trailing by other sports. I think if you look at what in America, the NBA, the NFL have done amazing things. Racing should take heed from these other sports and understand that it is okay to show support, and I feel that it is right to show support for the Black Lives Matter movement. And I really hope the racing does eventually pick it up. We've not lost completely, it's not completely over, and it's still something that can be done, things can be changed, but I just hope that we take heed from other sports and do what other sports are doing and really push on and push this message across, which is the message that is so close to my heart, and I'm sure it's close to everyone here's heart, and take it further.
As time goes on, you get a bit more hardened with all this stuff, and you just kind of begin to push it to the back and just not feel the way that you need to be. Like, you just don't really care about it no more. But it's not. It shouldn't be that way, and it should be pushed through. I reckon in racing they should push it through a lot more. At least do something to show, like, okay, yeah, they do support them, even if it's not big, but just show something to support a different kind of background, because it's not really it's really a white predominated sport.
Do you think a quota that more people on boards and senior leadership should be from ethnic minorities, or do you believe it will naturally come through from the next generation, Elijah?
It's hard. I think it's more about, rather than just trying to meet diversity quotas in the hope that it will make your brand look better, I think creating kind of more accessible opportunities for people from minority ethnic backgrounds to kind of get their way into the organisation, whether it's horse racing or in business or whatever. I think that is more important, because then you will be able to start getting people in who are genuinely there because they can do it really, really well, and even if they are white or from an ethnic minority.
In America, they've got the Rooney Rule, which I think is fantastic. It's basically created because 75% of the NFL playing population are black people. And what they're trying to say is they should be able to be in these management positions, whether they be team leaders, positional leaders, or people in head office. So now each NFL team that is hiring, involved in this hiring process, has to interview one person from a diverse background. Now, at the moment, there are some issues with that, and people say there's not enough. Some people say the interviews aren't good enough, but at least they're making a change. Within racing staff alone have a huge diverse background, but none of them make it into senior positions of power. And I feel that, unfortunately, if we continue the rate that we're going, we're just going to keep building up at the base level and not have anyone coming in at the top. What we need is an ability to interview these people. These people shouldn't be getting a job because they're diverse. They should be able to sit down on an interview despite being diverse. And I think that's the key thing. We have nepotism in this industry rife throughout, and we're very open about it. We have people giving jobs to friends and connections, and it's rife, and people know about it, and people discuss it, and it's very clear. What we need to be doing is people getting these jobs because they're talented, and people being able to interview for these jobs because they're talented, not be able to interview for these jobs because they're a friend of a friend.
Well, that's the big thing about it. Most of the people that I spoke to, they've already been in racing, they've done pony races, or they said they've had the license since 16 and certain things like that. Me coming into it, I came into it at 19, and I'm still trying to climb the ranks to try and get to the top where I want to be. So it's a case of just to try to help bring some more diversity from different kind of areas, different kind of cities, different places. They've not pushed it out as much as they should to allow people to understand that this is a pathway that they can actually choose. And I'm sure there's a lot of talent that it just doesn't get the chance to make it up to these kind of like positions.
Absolutely. There is no way for people who don't know much about racing, for where others come and approach them. I had to do it, you had to do it as well, Callum, and you had to do it, Josh, and so did you, which is doing it on your own impetus because you loved horse racing. There is no one going, right, let's go to kind of inner city places where there aren't many horses, but there are people who might be keen to ride, but they just don't know it because nobody has shown it to them. As a result, you get a lot of people, like Kanane said, who might be very, very talented, but they were never given the opportunity to do it because no one was helping them. And that's the issue.
So, Kevin, what do you think racing should be doing in support of eradication of racism, inclusion, more diversity?
I think they should show that they want diversity into the sport, because at the moment it's just like a big bubble. They don't want to be involved in the outside world or within anything that the world's actually getting on with. It's just racing is racing, and that's it, and racing sticks as racing. Even when I'm riding out on certain things, you don't hear anyone talking about anything else but racing. So it's a case of that they could try and make the sport more open to people that maybe never thought about it.
I would just like to see some support. I feel like racing has just ignored the George Floyd murder, which is a murder now. We can all say it's a murder because it's legally defined as a murder. It's still not being acknowledged by anybody, and I don't like the idea, well, it doesn't affect racing, so why should we talk about it? It doesn't affect other sports, but they're still talking about it. It affects the wider world. There's a whole world outside of racing, and racing is continuing to put itself in a bubble where it's not worrying about the outside world because everything in racing is fine. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is going, hang on a minute, a man died on camera in front of people in broad daylight, and and that's big news, at the hands of a police officer. Like, he died, and people aren't doing anything about it within this.
Is that a statement of what's happened for hundreds of years? I think it's not just the actual physical gruesome murder of George Floyd, it's what it stood for, or in terms of white supremacy and in terms of inclusiveness of a full diverse generation coming through, which I think has again come to the fore in the last year. So how do you see racing making a stance, Elijah?
I've got no kind of inclination from racing that they're even starting to make an effort. In terms of going forward, I would love to see racing engaging more with the kind of the wider community, because as you guys can testify, when you watch racing, it's all in these small pockets of the countryside and it's very out of touch with reality. But I watch things like football or Formula One, they are engaging with the wider community, and that's why their campaigns worked.
So Kanane, put yourself forward 5 years. Where would you like to be, and where do you see racing in 5 years on a diversity front?
So me, in 5 years, I would hope to be a conditional jockey by then, and I would love to see a bit more diversity in racing and see a lot more different kind of kids from different areas, different backgrounds coming into it, because right now it seems as it is just a very, very white predominated sport. I would love to see maybe a black trainer, something to show, okay, yeah, we're starting this and we're going to make this happen.
Callum, how do you perceive we haven't got one black trainer in the country, or any trainer of an ethnic minority background, other than ones that were domiciled in the Middle East? So how does that change?
I think that's the big one for me. That's something that I believe needs to stem from getting black jockeys. I personally believe that it's far easier for us to get black jockeys than it is to get black trainers. We need to be aiming to be trying to get black jockeys. I think that is the key to all of this. There are talented people, and we've all said it already, there are talented people all over the place who have the ideal measurables, who have the ideal discipline, who have the ideal weight, and would dream to be a professional sports person. Let's give them an opportunity to be a professional sports person. Let's give them an opportunity to be an amateur sports person in this sport. This sport is one of the few sports where amateurs and professionals can compete at a level against each other. Men and women can compete at a level against each other. We should be singing this from the rooftops. So we should be pushing this message, which is to say that you can be a jockey. You don't have to come from this specific background of pony club to hunting to working on a yard to then getting your license, going through the racing school. People should be given that opportunity to get in at that level earlier And unfortunately, it doesn't feel like we're doing our most to reach those people who are talented enough, but maybe don't have the funds, aren't in the right location, aren't surrounded by other equine-minded people, and they're getting lost. We're losing them through the cracks. And that has to change. We have to be taking advantage of everybody we can get our hands on.
I just want to see racing reflect wider Britain. I just want to see a good representation of all ethnic backgrounds, all sexualities, all genders that are all coming into racing, all competing off the same level. I think I echo what you guys say, that we just want to be given a fair chance. We want to share the same opportunities that those who were born into those horsey backgrounds actually do.
Well, I think you guys are three fantastic individuals, and you will be the pin-ups for our sport for a long, long time to come, and hopefully it will then encourage a lot more people of a diverse background coming into our sport. So thanks for coming today.
Cheers, thank you.